On this exciting episode of Live from the Roach Palace, now with air conditioning, we're going to talk about IBM Personal System 2 processor upgrades. In particular, we're going to talk about one known as the MicroMaster. The MicroMaster is the expansion card that you see on your screen right now. It's actually a single board computer. It was first developed by a company known as AOX, and then later Kingston, who is still around today as a memory maker, bought the product. Now this is perhaps the most impressive of any IBM Personal System 2 processor upgrade, because what it does in effect is it replaces the entire processor and memory subsystem of your IBM Personal System 2 computer. It replaces it with a 386 or 486 processor, its own memory for the fastest performance. It also has some cache, and at one time, on some later boards, there was devised a way to add a video expansion. This video expansion was developed but seemingly never marketed, and as far as I know, no one has ever seen one. This is the IBM PS2 Model 65SX. It features a 386SX processor from Intel. Now the 386SX processor is basically a cut-down 386. Internally, it's a real 386, and it works at 32-bit levels. Externally, however, so it could be used on cheaper and roughly converted 286-era boards, it has a 16-bit data and 24-bit address bus. So most of the 32-bit work that it does, it has to do in 2 cycles, which cuts its speed in half. Anyway, the 386SX is the lowest-end processor from Intel on which Windows 95 will run. And as you can see here, Windows 95 is definitely running on this computer. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use this computer as a demonstration to show you just how much more quickly the MicroMaster works as compared to the 386SX processor, so that you can see the nature of the upgrade. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm using a relatively late model HP CRT display, and unfortunately that HP CRT display is not really compatible with the way that the XGA2 video card installed in this machine right here recognizes displays. So as the computer starts up for this demonstration, I'm going to have to switch the display from the onboard VGA to the XGA2, which is what Windows 95 has been configured to use. So here we go. Turning the power on. The system starts up. Fan starts running. And then a couple of moments later, the screen comes up. It starts doing the power on self-checks. Alright, the power on self-tests are just about to complete. And here comes Windows 95. It's very exciting to watch. It's definitely working on starting up. I can hear it churning the hard drive. It's taken about 50 seconds so far. Alright. Make our monitor switch down here. Here comes the Windows 95 desktop starting up. Now just a little over a minute. And I've got an hourglass. And now Windows 95 has, approximately a minute and 20 seconds later, reached the point of usability. Now I just requested the start menu, and as you can see it's pushed in. It actually took it a moment to come up. So I don't overly recommend running Windows 95 on a 386SX processor clocked at 16 megahertz. So now let's shut the computer down and try installing the MicroMaster card to see what kind of a speed increase it gives us. Here we are inside the computer, and there's the card ready to install. I'm going to put it in one of those two bottom slots. Now, in a microchannel system, everything is plug and play, and the system is always aware of what adapters it has installed. So before you install a new adapter in a microchannel computer, you need to tell the system configuration software about what you've done. And the way you do that is with so-called ADF files that you put on a floppy disk. You go into the program here, the set configuration program, and you say, copy an option diskette. And then after a moment, the system tells you to remove your reference disk. You then insert the new disk. And it looks around for option files. Tells you to remove that disk. Put the reference disk back in. And then it copies those files to your reference disk. After it's done that, you're ready to install your hardware, and it tells you that the update of the reference disk is now complete. The new MicroMaster card is now installed, so let's button this up, turn it on, and get it configured. And the system will soon notice that its configuration has changed, and it will apprise us of that fact with a 3-digit error code. The code in this case will be 165. And if the reference disk is still in your floppy drive, it'll go right straight to it and allow us to configure the system. Now, most of the time when you configure the system, you may as well do the automatic configuration. In this case, we are going to do the automatic configuration, but then I have to go back in and make some setting changes so that the new MicroMaster card will function properly. Okay, now I'm going into manual configuration from the reference disk after restarting to manually adjust some aspects of the configuration. In particular, because I have memory installed on the MicroMaster and I have memory on the system board, a total of 16 megabytes, the reference disk doesn't know that when it configures things, and so it leaves the XGA aperture at an inappropriate value that will conflict with actual installed memory. That's one setting I'm going to change. I'm going to turn off that video aperture. See, it thinks it's okay to put that at 14 megabytes, and it's not. So I'm going to turn that off. And then I'm going to go over here to the MicroMaster configuration utility, and I'm going to tell it to use only the memory on the MicroMaster hardware. Now, if you have memory installed on your MicroMaster, that is really the way to go, because although it can use the on-system board or on-planar board memory, to do so exacts a tremendous performance penalty. Now we're done configuring the system, and it's ready to restart. The system configuration has been changed, and so the system will restart when I hit the Enter key on the keyboard. Now it goes through all the normal motions of a power-on self-test, counting up the memory just like usual. But when the memory is done being counted up, you see the first sign of knowing that the MicroMaster hardware is installed and functional as it takes over the system hardware and becomes the main system processor. Here it comes. At this point, you could press the O key to return to the original processor and deactivate the MicroMaster. And it tells you what your host computer is, and you can hit the space bar to stop the memory test if you so desire. And now we're running as though we had a 486 processor. So let's see how long it takes to start Windows 95.